Hello, how the heck are you guys doing? Welcome back to Rule of Two Review. Today I felt it was a good idea for me to finally discuss my thoughts on this whole Nintendo Switch power conversation. So the basic idea of what we're getting at today is a conversation that's been happening this past week about the Nintendo Switch and how its power might specifically relate to the PlayStation 4. This was something that I didn't really see coming. I mean, obviously, we're all waiting to find out a lot of the details about the Nintendo Switch. One of the biggest questions a lot of us have, even those of us like myself who aren't really graphics maniacs, we're still very curious about the power ability and what's under the hood of the Nintendo Switch. And for myself, it's not so much the actual specs and the details, it's just the final result. Where will the system fall in terms of power? What's the maximum output it can do for certain games? How is it going to compare to the competition? Because in a way, I think that that's fairly important. It's also kind of fun to discuss that stuff. I think that there is some relevance to the conversation. So we've all been wondering what's going on with the power situation with the Nintendo Switch for sure, and looking forward to Nintendo giving us hopefully some of that information in January. But now, over the course of the last few days, this conversation about the Nintendo Switch directly compared to the PlayStation 4 has come out. From what I can gather, again, coming from someone who is not tech savvy, if you guys know me, you know that I'm not tech savvy, but from what I can gather, it surrounds this whole concept or debate that's started to show up about whether or not the Switch uses something called Maxwell or Pascal architecture inside of the system to actually basically power the console. So in case any of you tech heads out there can't tell, I sure as hell don't really know what the difference between this Maxwell and this Pascal architecture is. I just know that it's basically some different design that speaks to what the Maxwell is going to allow a system to do and visually be able to achieve, and the Pascal is just another version of the same thing that allows for other different abilities. Luckily, there's two very simple names. It's like, oh, okay, Maxwell is one option and Pascal is the other. That much I can grasp. So I'm not going to be able to talk about those details, obviously, as I don't really understand the difference and it's not really what I do. But what happened is through this discussion, people started to say, well, this is potentially confirming another thing. That's a rumor. That's quote unquote potentially confirming blah, 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 blah. You know, all these different things that keep happening. And a lot of times I end up discussing because it becomes interesting and you guys really seem to care about that stuff. So this apparently speaks to the system potentially being confirmed to be weaker than the PlayStation 4. That's the conversation. That's the quote. That's the title in articles and posts and tweets and YouTube videos that I've seen. Switch to be less powerful than the PlayStation 4 due to this whole Maxwell-Pascal debate, conversation, whatever that whole thing is. I found it kind of interesting because apparently a lot of people, of course, are crying the end of the Switch already. If it's weaker than the PlayStation 4, it has to be doomed. There's no way it's going to be successful, yada, yada, yada. All this stuff that I basically call complete bullshit on. The reason I call complete bullshit on that idea is really the crux of the video and why I wanted to discuss this real quick with you guys today. Basically asking the question, does the Nintendo Switch need to be more powerful than the PlayStation 4? And no, absolutely not. The system does not need to be more powerful than the PlayStation 4, and I can't fathom why anyone would think so. I mean, the Xbox One isn't more powerful than the PlayStation 4, and what system has outsold the other the last 4 or 5 months in a row? Oh yeah, that's right, the Xbox One. Selling more than the PlayStation 4, even with the release of the PlayStation 4 Pro, and I actually don't know if that has actually changed the game. But leading up to the launch of the PlayStation 4 Pro, I think it was 3 or 4 months running, the Xbox One was outselling the PlayStation 4. And rightfully so. I love my PlayStation 4, but I love my Xbox One more. I think it's a better and cleaner running machine overall. And so we have a situation where, just like many generations before, the most powerful console isn't always the one that sells the best or even produces the best content. Hell, Sony actually owned that 2 generations ago when the PlayStation 2, the weakest of the 3 6th-generation consoles, absolutely destroyed the competition. And then we, of course, have the one and only Nintendo Wii, by far the weakest of those 3 consoles, and it devastated nuclear bombs across the video game industry, and its competition devastated the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and it didn't require the most amazing visuals or graphics or fidelity or any of that stuff to achieve that. Now, I don't want to downplay the importance of graphics and visuals, and I don't want to downplay what it might mean for any console to be the actual most powerful video game console. Of course, PC is not really in this conversation. We're just talking video game consoles. And it does mean something to be able to say our system is the most powerful, or for someone who owns that console to be able to say, yeah, I own the XYZ because the XYZ has the best graphics and is the most powerful. I get that, and part of the reason I enjoy my PlayStation 4 is that I know if I want to get the best looking version of a multi-platform game, I have that option available if the graphics of the game is going to really make a difference to me, which it actually very, very rarely does. I actually prefer the Xbox One controller, so I buy a lot of my multi-plats on the Xbox One if it's competitive, so I get the better controller. But the whole point of this, bringing this back to the Switch, all of a sudden it's like, well, if the Switch is confirmed to be less powerful than the PlayStation 4, which it's actually not confirmed, this is just some other random conversation people have started to have, if it's confirmed to be less powerful than the PlayStation 4, then there's no hope of it being successful. Well, as I've said and pointed out a couple of times already, that's not the case, you guys. It would be fantastic if the Nintendo Switch managed to come out as this console handheld hybrid that it is, and Nintendo was able to say, boom, bitches, check out these specs, and it's better and more capable than what the PlayStation 4 can do. Like, that would be fantastic. It would be a huge win for Nintendo. It would certainly make me and many gamers excited, absolutely. But I think that despite the people crying about this concept and saying it's going to doom the Switch, I think that most of us, and definitely myself, aren't looking or even expecting for the Nintendo Switch to be more powerful than the PlayStation 4. And if you're not expecting it, but you're still excited, and if you can be the kind of gamer that just realizes, man, it's the games that make a difference. It's maybe the controller or the way the system allows me to interact with my games. It's their online network. It's their first-party content. It's their exclusive libraries. It's all these things that actually make a system the best and the most entertaining, or even entertaining at all. It doesn't necessarily have to be the best in any of those categories to still be great. And if we realize that those are the things that matter, and it doesn't have to have the best graphics to be the best system, oh, graphics, then all of a sudden you can realize, hey, the Nintendo Switch looks pretty great, just like, hey, the Xbox One, the weaker of the other two, is also pretty great, and it doesn't require those graphics, so let's just be excited for it. Let's just enjoy what the systems are able to allow us to do. Let's just enjoy those damned games, those video games, the things that we actually buy our consoles for, right? Isn't that what we buy our consoles for? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that's just me. That's what we buy our consoles for, is the video games and those experiences. We don't need those great graphics. Again, I'll end this here reiterating the point that great graphics are nice, and sometimes they do matter. And there are times where having the best graphics available can certainly help the situation, absolutely. And like I said, if Nintendo managed to surprise everyone and have a Nintendo Switch that's more powerful than the PS4, whether that means Maxwell or Pascal or Bobby Smith or Copernicus, whatever the name of the architecture, if one of those makes it more powerful than the PlayStation 4, that's great, you guys. Nintendo hasn't been able to claim that in a very long time, and it certainly would help, and it would be one less hurdle they have to kind of jump over at this point, because right now Nintendo has several hurdles to jump over in order to make the Switch successful, and from what we've seen so far, they've been clearing those hurdles with ease, but there's some that we don't really know if they're going to be able to clear. The one that we assume they won't is that power hurdle. We all assume that it's going to be less powerful than the PS4, very potentially even the Xbox One. It's obviously capable enough to make multiplats for those games. We know that third-party developers seem to believe in it, so it's not so weak that it's necessarily holding back the games that are going to be available on it, but we assume it's going to be the least powerful, or at least the middle powerful of the three. And so yes, that power conversation does really exist as a hurdle, and imagine if it was more powerful than the PS4, and all of a sudden that's just one hurdle left that it doesn't actually have to jump over. But we don't expect that, and at the end of the day, this whole long video is just about me telling you that I don't really think that the Switch has to be more powerful than the PlayStation 4 to be successful. It doesn't have to be the most powerful console in the market to be interesting to people. Like I said, I think that 95% of people who follow video games and know all these companies already know that it's not going to be more powerful than the PlayStation 4, but look at how much excitement and buzz and fervor there is for the Switch. Look at how excited so many people are for the Switch, as I like to bring up both Nintendo gamers, non-Nintendo gamers, and non-gamers. I always bring up those three categories of people and how all of them have a very vested and extreme interest in the Switch. And like I said, most of us know it's not going to be more powerful than the PS4. So it's already not holding the system back from people being willing to say, I want to buy that thing. So there's no reason to think that if it finally becomes confirmed that the Switch isn't as powerful as the PlayStation 4, there's no reason to think that that's going to just kill the system and be the final nail in the coffin for the Nintendo Switch 4 months before the thing even freaking comes out. I mean, that's absolute madness, in my humble opinion. So that's what's up with this whole weird PS4 Nintendo Switch conversation. Tell me what you guys think about this idea below, and the fact that maybe, hopefully you guys have actually seen this conversation floating around the internet the last few days. Do any of you really understand the difference between this Maxwell and Pascal architecture thing? If you do, you certainly should share your knowledge below. Like I said, I don't know it, which is why I didn't really talk about it on this video, but I just know that it kind of sparked this conversation, and I wanted to throw my 2 cents into the ring to see if it clicked with anyone and anyone really kind of understands where I'm coming from. So what do you think? Does the Nintendo Switch have to be the most powerful console on the market, more powerful than Sony's PlayStation 4, to be successful or interesting to a lot of people? What do you guys think? I sure as hell don't think so. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is, of course, Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.